Today on Up Front, the coming debate over civil service reform. Should a test or a resume help determine who gets a job? It's our discussion with Assembly Majority Leader Jim Steineke and Democratic Representative Dianne Hesselbein. Then a vacancy on the state Supreme Court. Will the governor turn to one of the candidates already running? And hundreds of layoffs at a Waukesha engine plant. Are workers there caught in a political battle?
Covering the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Up Front with Mike Goucher.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Up Front. Cronyism or modernization? Those are a couple of the words we're hearing a lot these days as lawmakers start debate on a Republican bill that would overhaul the state's 110-year-old civil service system. Civil service affects about 30,000 state employees. Republicans say they want to modernize the system and propose eliminating the civil service exam in favor of resume-based hiring. They would also make it easier to discipline or fire certain state employees and eliminate the bumping rights that protect longer-term employees. Democrats say this will just make it easier to hire political cronies. The Senate Labor Committee will hold a hearing on the bill Tuesday, and we're looking at civil service changes today with the bill's assembly sponsor, Majority Leader Jim Steineke of Kaukauna, and a Democratic opponent, Representative Dianne Hesselbein of Middleton. Thanks to both of you for being with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Representative Steineke, let me begin with you. Why is this needed?
Well, currently, as we talked to agencies over the last few months, it became more and more clear to us that changes were needed. One of the reasons is currently under the way things are structured, it can take anywhere from 5 to 8 months to hire a single individual. That's a serious problem, especially when you look 5 years out from today. 23% of the state's workforce is going to be eligible for retirement. In 10 years, that balloons to 40%. So we need to streamline the system to be able to get employees in the door faster, also make sure that we're hiring the best and the brightest to serve the state.
Representative Hesselbein, why no changes? Why do you think this is not a good idea?
Well, the civil service started in 1905, and the theory was the best shall serve the state. And it was signed into law by former Governor, Republican, Bob LaFollette, who's been a hero of mine for years, possibly yours too. And it really allowed anybody, no matter what their background, their education, to rise to that level, to take a test and to say whether they were a short order cook or they had their PhD, take a test that you don't know who's taking it, and at the end of the day, who scores the highest will get the job. And that's what Bob LaFollette worked against his entire life, is cronyism, and trying to make it simple in the state of Wisconsin, and it's working.
And that's your concern, that there will be cronyism, that somehow this will open the door for friends of friends to be appointed to jobs within state government?
Absolutely. I think we've seen that in WEDC. It just became a slush fund for the governor for his campaign contributors. I worry that what they're going to be applying for those jobs using resume-based by the Department of Administration. What is the first thing they're going to check? Whether they sign the recall. That's currently how people are chosen at the Board of Regents right now, especially if you're a student trying to get that position. Is that what they're going to check? Did you sign the recall? Have you been a campaign contributor? And what your affiliation is.
Representative, have you respond to that? The claim that you hear from Democrats is this is going to result in, patronage jobs.
Yeah, I've heard that quite a bit, and I think part of the problem is I don't think people are truly reading the bill. Because it's already illegal under state statutes to base hiring or firing decisions based on political affiliation. Our bill does nothing to change that. So there will be no changes to how people are hired or fired, and it'll still be illegal even if this bill passes to hire or fire based on political affiliation.
Representative Hesselbein, there have been Democrats around the country who have supported civil service changes. I think of Colorado's Governor John Hickenlooper, Democrat, said, hey, we needed to make some changes. Why shouldn't the state look to update a 110-year-old set of rules?
Well, it's not that we shouldn't look at it, but this isn't reform. I mean, a reform is when you get people around the table and you get supervisors and workers in the state of Wisconsin and you try to craft something that works for people. This isn't reform. This is gutting it. If there needed to be a tweak, I am certainly more than willing to sit down with Representative Steineke or anybody on the opposite party to say what changes can be made, but what's being done now is not going to help the people in Wisconsin. It's not going to help the men and women across the state.
Tweak is an interesting word. That's the word that Senator Fitzgerald used on this program a week ago. He says we're tweaking the laws. Is that how you describe it, or is it something bigger than that?
No, I mean, I think it's substantive reform, but it is by far not gutting civil service protections. Civil service protections stay in place. The core tenets of what civil service was brought into place for are still there. Really what we're looking at is, I think, extremely employee friendly. We're trying to get good quality candidates in the door faster so they don't have to wait 6 months to get an answer from the state as to whether they have a job or not. And then on the back end, it shouldn't take a year and a half to get rid of employees that aren't measuring up. And that's kind of where we're at right now.
I see. You want to respond to that?
Yeah, I would say this is definitely gutting it. Probation time going from 6 months, which is right now, to 2 years. That's gutting civil service. And as far as they're, having a long time to get rid of a few bad actors, that's unfortunate that happened. But there is a plan in place to do that if there is something egregious happening with workers in the state of Wisconsin. But we bring people to the table. We work on improvement plans. We try to give people a second chance. And if that doesn't work, then yes, maybe they should be terminated. But there's a plan in place to have those situations. And you don't punish 30,000 people for literally what I've been hearing, maybe 8 bad cases in the state of Wisconsin.
Representative?
Well, and the thing that people have to remember is that those due process, step-by-step process is still in place for a vast majority of the cases. What we do under this bill, which again I'd say is incredibly employee-friendly, is we define just cause. Currently under state law, just cause really has no definition. So what a lot of employees I've heard will say is that they're worried about getting fired just because, right? And that's one of the things that they're concerned about. So under just cause, we define exactly where the line is, a clear, bright line that they can't cross without being subject to immediate termination. And it's something that in the private sector everybody can agree on. Sexual harassment, violence at the workplace, drug abuse, things of those nature will all get you to a place where you could be fired immediately.
Let me shift gears briefly and talk about another big issue that's come up this week. This is about transportation. We found out that some major projects in this state will not be moving forward. They'll have to be delayed because we simply don't have enough money to pay for them right now. I want to have Representative Hesselbein begin this part of the discussion. Some people in your party calling for a special session to take up these transportation issues. One of these roads is in your district.
Absolutely.
Is that what we need, special session?
We do. I think, the governor had that task force a few years ago. I've met with Secretary Gottlieb. He had really good ideas about what we can do to help transportation. I'm very worried about my district and the Verona Road area, but also in our towns, we're not giving them funding either. So they're talking about laying gravel over the existing crumbling roads because they can't keep up with all the stuff they need to do as well with maintenance.
So do we have to raise taxes? I mean, we have to come up with money to do that. How do we do it?
Absolutely. I think we've got to have that conversation. My door is open. I'm looking forward to what the Republicans have to say. What is their solution? We had a chance to do it in the budget by taking this federal dollars for Medicaid money. They decided not to do that. What is their proposal? We need to move forward because we have to keep people safe in the state of Wisconsin.
Representative, some of these projects are not too far away from you. The Highway 10, 441 project is close by. What do you say to the people who say we need to get back into session, take another look at transportation?
Sure. Well, I'm a little confused because taking federal dollars for Medicaid expansion would not fix one single road in the state. I mean, so let's be clear on that. But we do have to look over the course of the next 2 years and try to come together over a solution to broaden the base of funding for transportation. It's clear that the transportation fund is not keeping up with our maintenance and repair needs and our construction needs. So it is something we're going to have to look at. We tried to make a push for that in this last budget cycle. We couldn't come to an answer, but I do think going forward we're going to have a more constructive dialogue about how that happens.
I'll ask you the same question I asked Representative Hesselbein. I don't think you closed the door on a tax increase to help pay for these things. Would you support some sort of tax increase, as the Transportation Secretary, Gottlieb, has suggested might be necessary?
Yeah, like I said, I don't think we get out of this without broadening the base of revenues for the Transportation Fund. It's something that's going to have to happen now. There's going to be disagreements over how that works, whether it's a registration fee increase or a gas tax increase, whatever it may be. But the first thing our responsibility is to make sure that every dollar that's being spent in transportation is being spent wisely. I think we're getting to that point, so now we have to look at the revenue side.
I'll give you a final
We need action, and
word.
we need it now. The state of Wisconsin needs roads that they can travel to and be safe going to and from work.
All right. Representative Diane Hesselbein is from Middleton. Representative Jim Steinke is the Assembly Majority Leader from Kaukauna. Thanks very much to both of you for being with us today.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
When we come back, Governor Walker considering an appointment to the state Supreme Court. Did he signal his intent on Twitter? And later, hundreds of people will lose their jobs at a Waukesha engine plant, the issue that exposes a split in the state's congressional delegation. That's when Up Front continues.
Up Front with Mike Goucher, brought to you by the American Transmission Company and the Wisconsin Corn Growers Association.